How it is, bro? It's the Bareback Barbarians podcast up in this piece doing what we do. It's the Bareback Barbarians podcast up in this piece doing what we do.
What's going on, folks? It's Mo Genie, baby. Alright, so we here for the Daily Shakedown. And we've got another doozy here for y'all. Antonio Brown, ladies and gentlemen, just got cut from the Raiders, loses $30 million guaranteed money for acting a fool. Now, I'm going to put it out there. I got a conspiracy theory. I think this dude engineered a move out of Oakland because none of this makes sense. Antonio Brown just got cut, released by the Oakland Raiders, and is now a free agent. His agent is Drew Rosenhaus, probably one of the slimiest agents in the NFL. Some say one of the best agents in the NFL. And I feel like this dude didn't want to play for the Raiders. He probably, wanted that money. $30 million guaranteed. That's ridiculous for a wide receiver. That's a little bit under quarterback money. And this dude, but he engineered a move out and loses that $30 million guaranteed. So what was the point then? You know what I mean? And the Steelers are sitting there like, we told y'all, mama. We told y'all want to listen. This dude is a nutball. He's a wild one. Pittsburgh Steelers basically are laughing, you know what I mean, all the way to wherever because they knew the situation would happen. This dude just seems like a problem in the locker room. He's basically a Terrell Owens 2.0 type character is what all these journalists and NFL journalists are saying and pundits, you know what I mean, on the NFL Network and all that. Let me read you this article here about how he officially got cut. Raiders cut Antonio Brown after Instagram post asking for release and voiding nearly $30 million in guarantees, baby. Wow. Oakland Raiders put out a post on the 7th. Raiders have released Antonio Brown from the team today. Continues on to say, following his release, Brown's agent Drew Rosenhaus told Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. And why are Ian Rappaport and Michael Schefter like the only guys that break stories? Like, are there not any other NFL journalists? Like, I don't get it. Those two guys are the ones that are always their names up there. Now that Antonio is a free agent, this is Drew Rosenhaus talking. We are focused on the future, and I will immediately work on signing him to a new team. Antonio is looking forward to a new beginning. You just had a new beginning, or you just had it makes no sense. That statement makes no sense. Brown isn't subject to waivers and will be a free agent, able to sign with any other team that will have him early as 4 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday. So by the time this video drops, he'll have already been on a team. I'm updating it now, which he is. He's on the Patriots now. But I'll talk about that in a separate video. This is part 1. He cannot, however, suit up in week 1. The earliest we could see 80 back on the field in new uniform is week 2. The rest of the Raiders and the Broncos will be suiting up for week 1, and as you'd expect following Brown's release, the markets reacted quickly, with the Broncos again moving the 2.5 favorites in most spots for landing him. That's what people were thinking, that he might go there or the Browns. In my opinion, okay, and then it says, with Oakland potentially avoiding the guaranteed money in his contract as late as noon on Friday, then Brown apologized to his teammates. Gruden said he was back in and playing Monday, and shortly thereafter, Brown released a video that appeared to... This is the reason why he got cut. Brown released a video that appeared to feature a recording of Gruden talking him into coming back in a phone call. Basically, Gruden knew he was going to release his video too. He got suspended for doing content detrimental to the team. And then Brown apologizes. Then him and Gruden have a phone call where Gruden tells him basically, come back to the team. Brown recorded this conversation, clandestinely. You know what I mean? And ends up releasing this after he got cut. Because the Raiders basically just didn't want to take his apology and just completely cut him and void that $30 million guaranteed money. And then fined him $200,000. Then I'll put a picture here. He releases an Instagram post where he says, "You're gonna piss a lot of people off when you start doing what's best for you." Probably the dumbest statement I ever heard from a guy who just lost $30 million. Guaranteed. So, continues on to say, after leaving Pittsburgh, Oakland acquired his services for a 2019 third and fifth round pick. That's what they gave the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are freaking laughing all the way to the bank. Even though he is probably the best wide receiver in the league, you could go, DeAndre Hopkins and him, probably two best receivers in the league. One's a head case and one is a hard-working, puts his head down and just does his job. So, which one would you rather have? DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. He then negotiated a deal to pay him $50 million over the next 3 years with the Raiders, with $30 million of it guaranteed. That's all down the drain now, and of course that money will never be seen in Brown's pocket after this. So basically, I don't need to read the rest of the article. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I feel like this was engineered. Alright? By Antonio Brown. He didn't want to go to the Raiders to begin with. He probably thought there was going to be a lot of other teams that were going to be willing to pay that $50 million contract with $30 million of it guaranteed. Only the Raiders came up and did it. You know what I mean? I feel like he engineered a move out. He did this whole fiasco in the locker room and did all that so he could get cut, released by Oakland, and go somewhere else. All right? It just doesn't make sense, because why would you turn your back on $30 million guaranteed? You know what I'm saying? Let me take my octagons off. Why would you turn your back on $30 million guaranteed? And with incentives and bonuses, you're gonna get $50 million total if you do your job like you've been doing in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? And I don't even know why he left Pittsburgh. I mean, obviously it's because Pittsburgh weren't gonna pay him that type of money, and Pittsburgh loses Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. I don't know why. They could have afforded to keep one of those pieces, but instead now they're relying on Le'Veon Bell's backup, who had a good year last year. Connor, I think his name is. I mean, sure, he had a good year, but maybe that's because the O-line is good. That doesn't mean he's actually a good back. If you lose a couple of guys, O-lineman to injury, that shit might, blow up in their face. And their number one wide receiver now is Juju Schuster. So, I mean, they could have afforded to keep one of those guys. But to let two elite level players leave your team, I just think that was a bad mistake by the Pittsburgh Steelers, no matter what they got back in return. Maybe Le'Veon would have been more important, in my opinion, to keep than Antonio. But Antonio's more of a head case, I hear, than Le'Veon. But Le'Veon, running backs have a shorter shelf life. They can get injured more. They have a shorter shelf life. So it's a flip of a coin. They decided they didn't want either one of them dudes. So I don't know how the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to ride this season. But in my opinion, I think this was a conspiracy and an engineered move by Antonio Brown to get out of his deal with the Raiders. He believed that he would find at least somebody to pay close to the same amount in guaranteed money or a little bit less. And he engineered the move to get out. I'm gonna talk about that and where he ends up in part 2. This is the Daily Shakedown. I'll see y'all later. Peace.
Yeah, you know who it is, Don Tony Teflon, Mo Genie Languini. You know how we do. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Bareback Barbarian podcast. Peace and stay sexy.